against His commandments, it does not matter. Whoever is part of the creation of Allah Azza wa Jal, they receive this mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal. And that is why we will see that in this world, there are many people who might be the worst kind of people, and yet they have a lot of goodness in their life. This is from the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal. Despite all their rebellion, despite all their injustice, Allah Azza wa Jal still blesses them with His mercy. And so this is the general mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal that the scholars say relates back to the name of Allah, Ar-Rahman. Ar-Rahman is the one who is merciful to all of the creation. And that's why in a verse, Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, رَبَّنَا وَسِعْتَ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ رَحْمَةً وَعِلْمًا. He quotes someone as saying, "O our Lord, رَبَّنَا وَسِعْتَ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ, You have encompassed everything in creation with both your mercy and with your knowledge. And so you know every single thing in creation, the biggest of it and the smallest of it, regardless of how big it is, regardless of how small it is, regardless of how apparent it is, regardless of how hidden it is, Allah Azza wa Jal knows of it and His mercy encompasses it. And so this is the general mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal. And this is the mercy that we find in the name of Allah, Ar-Rahman. And the second mercy, the second type of mercy, is a mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal that is specific to the believers. It is specific to the servants of Allah Azza wa Jal. It's specific to those who try their best to be obedient to Allah Azza wa Jal. And this mercy is the mercy on which the name of Allah Ar-Rahim is formed. That is why Allah Azza wa Jal, He says in the Quran, وَكَانَ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ رَحِيمًا, that Allah Azza wa Jal, He is the most merciful. With whom? With the believers. And the name that is used over here is Rahim. It's not Rahman. And if we look at the other proofs as well, we see that there is a general form of mercy and there is a specific form of mercy. That's why Allah Azza wa Jal in certain times will only give mercy to those who show mercy. The Prophet ﷺ, in a narration, he said, "Ar-Rahimuna yarhamuhum ar-Rahman." Those who are Rahimun, those who show mercy amongst creation with the rest of the creation in this world, the Prophet ﷺ says, Allah Azza wa Jal will also be merciful to them. The Prophet ﷺ also says, "Irham man fil ard, yarhamukum man fis sama." Have mercy on those who are on earth, and the one in the heavens will have mercy on you. And yet in another narration, the Prophet ﷺ, when he was once kissing his grandson, and there was a Bedouin man who was present, he observed the Prophet ﷺ showing so much love to these children. And then he said to the Prophet ﷺ, he was a believer, but he had this thing lacking in him. He says to the Prophet ﷺ, I have many children, but I've never kissed any of them. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he looked to him, and then he said to this man, he said, "Man la yarham, la yurham." The one who is not merciful, they will also not have mercy done upon them by Allah Azza wa Jal. So over here we can start to see how we're supposed to be affected by this name of Allah Azza wa Jal. The first thing is that we realize this mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal. We acknowledge this mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal. Because once we realize this mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal, we're going to try to work towards attaining this mercy of His. In fact, we might have mercy being shown, mercy that's sent down upon us, for which we have to be grateful for. Aisha radiallahu anha, the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the mother of the believers. Once she said to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because she used to see that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam stands up in the night prayer until his feet swell up, until they start to crack. She said to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, why is it that you spend so much time at night worshipping Allah Azza wa Jal when all your previous sins and any future sins of yours have been forgiven? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he responded and he said, أَفَلَا أَكُونُ عَبْدًا شَكُورًا. If that is the case, the Prophet ﷺ has been forgiven for anything that he does. He says to Aisha radiallahu anha, then should I then not be a thankful and a grateful servant to Allah Azza wa Jal? If He has bestowed me with so much mercy, I should also show my gratitude to Allah Azza wa Jal for that. And Allah Azza wa Jal also says in another place in the Quran that when we are grateful to Allah Azza wa Jal for a blessing of His, Allah gives us an increase in that blessing. So if we are being grateful to Allah Azza wa Jal for the mercy He has bestowed upon us, then insha'Allah, Allah will bestow us with even more mercy. And therefore, being grateful to Allah Azza wa Jal will have benefits that come back to us. It doesn't matter to Allah Azza wa Jal whether we're grateful or not, because He is not in need of us being grateful to Him or of our worship. And we've said this multiple times, that Allah Azza wa Jal, He says in the Quran, that Allah is ghaniyun 'anil 'alamin, that Allah is completely free of any need from the creation. If from the first of creation till the last of creation, we're the worst of people who disobeyed Allah Azza wa Jal in the worst of ways, that would not cause any deficit of Allah Azza wa Jal. That would not harm Allah Azza wa Jal in any way or take anything away from Him. And likewise, if the first person till the last person ever created was the most pious individual who spent his whole life in the worship of Allah Azza wa Jal, that would not increase Allah Azza wa Jal's grandeur, because Allah Azza wa Jal is the greatest, regardless of whether we show that or not. Independently, He is the greatest. And so, once the steps that we should take, insha'Allah, with regards to this name is number one, first acknowledge that Allah Azza wa Jal is the most merciful. And then be grateful for that mercy. And then ask Allah for this mercy. And then when we sin, we realize that Allah Azza wa Jal, He's full of mercy. I can turn to Him. I can turn to Him and seek repentance. I can seek forgiveness from Allah Azza wa Jal. And when we do so, we are insha'Allah getting closer to be of those who get from both forms of the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal. From the one that we can derive from the name of Allah Ar-Rahman, and the one that we can derive from the name of Allah Ar-Rahim. The one that is general for all of creation, and the one that is specific for His servants. Now, who are these servants that Allah Azza wa Jal is talking about? We had said that Allah Azza wa Jal, He had said in the Quran, فَإِنَّ رَحْمَةَ اللَّهِ قَرِيبٌ مِّنَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ, that the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal is close to those who are muhsinun, those who are trying to perfect their Islam, those who are trying to perfect their acts that are done for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. And we also know that there are certain forms of mercy that are only there for the servants of Allah Azza wa Jal. Who are these servants of the Rahman? Allah Azza wa Jal, in the end of Surah Al-Furqan, in very beautiful verses, describes who the servants of the Most Merciful are. وَعِبَادُ الرَّحْمَنِ الَّذِينَ يَمْشُونَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ هَوْنًا وَإِذَا خَاطَبَهُمُ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا سَلَامًا. And Allah Azza wa Jal goes through the description of who these servants of this Rahman, who the servants of Rahman are. And so we try to incorporate these characteristics in our lives as well. Those who walk on this earth in a very easy manner, without being full of pride, without being full of themselves. And when the ignorant address them in negative ways, all they have to say back to them is peaceful things. And those who spend the nights or parts of the nights in prostration to Allah Azza wa Jal. And those who give in charity to Allah Azza wa Jal, in the ways or the paths of Allah Azza wa Jal. And those who don't associate any partners, and there are many other characteristics mentioned in these sets of verses that inshallah we can all go back to. Surah Al-Furqan, the 25th chapter of the Quran. In the last page and a half, we will find these characteristics. Allah Azza wa Jal also says in the Quran, وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ وَأَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ. And establish the prayers, and give zakah, and obey the messenger, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ, so that Allah Azza wa Jal could have mercy on you. And so we realize that from the greatest of these mercies, from the greatest by far mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal, is the fact that He has sent messengers to us to guide us to the straight path, to guide us to Jannah, to guide us to the success that will be eternal. And that is why we have to follow these messengers. That's why we have to follow what's within the message that's sent down as well. Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. We have not sent you, O Muhammad, except as a mercy to all of mankind, to all of creation. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was merciful to the young and to the old. He was merciful to those whom society had propped up, and he was also merciful to those whom the society considered to be misfits. He was merciful to the weak. He was merciful to the strong. He was merciful even to things that we would consider to be inanimate. When the Prophet ﷺ used to give the khutbah on a stump of a tree, afterwards there was a mimbar that was built for him. There was that pulpit that was built for him that he started to use instead of that tree stump. And so the first time the Prophet ﷺ ascends this pulpit, he starts to hear this tree stump weeping. And the most merciful from the creation of Allah Azza wa Jalla, the Prophet ﷺ, he comes down the pulpit and he goes to the tree stump and he embraces it until it stops crying. This is the same Prophet who also taught us to be merciful to the animals. This is the same Prophet who saw a camel crying because of the way it was being treated by its owner. And the Prophet ﷺ rebuked the owner of this camel. And so if the Prophet ﷺ has been sent as a mercy to all of us, that means even the message that he has come forth with is a mercy for all of us. This Sharia that we have, Islam, the Islam that we try to follow, this is a mercy for us from Allah Azza wa Jal. And so insha'Allah, if we want to live this name in our lives, because we said part of enumerating the names of Allah Azza wa Jal to attain Jannah is to also try to implement these names in our lives. Part of implementing that is also living our life according to how Allah Azza wa Jal wants us to live it, following the guidelines established by Allah Azza wa Jal and taught to us by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim, He is always with us. His mercy is always with us in the general sense, and insha'Allah, if we are from His servants, it's even there with us in the specific sense, the one that's specific to the very close servants of Allah Azza wa Jal. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to envelop us, to encompass our lives and all our affairs with His mercy, and to constantly send down from His mercy on us and anything that relates to us. And may Allah Azza wa Jal help us in these testing times, at a time when we might feel that we're detached from the masajid, from the centers that are the best of places to Allah Azza wa Jal. The most beloved of places, as the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, are the masajid, are the masjids. And so in this time, when we are not able to draw close to these places, we try to draw close to Him in our homes during the last third of the night, when Allah Azza wa Jal Himself has said that He then asks the servants, who is asking so that I may give to them? Who is wanting things from me? Who is making dua to me so that I may answer them? Who is seeking forgiveness so that I may forgive them? Once we realize that Allah Azza wa Jal, His overwhelming attribute is mercy, we are grateful for that. And then we try to please Allah Azza wa Jal in every single thing that we do. And we try to attain that mercy from Allah Azza wa Jal, not just in this world, but also in the hereafter. And we also try to spread that mercy in this world, because as the Prophet ﷺ, he said, whoever shows mercy to the creation of Allah on this earth, the one above the heavens sends down His mercy upon them. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make us from those who are merciful with each other. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal that He continues to increase His mercy upon us. And we ask Allah Azza wa Jal that we are included from the people who will be bestowed the rest of the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal, the largest chunk of the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal on the Day of Judgment, on a day when our wealth, our children, our name, none of that will matter except for the person who comes to Allah Azza wa Jal with a pure heart. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.